beginning of 19th century gave impetus to the learning the notion of heritage and the monuments of antiquity. As a result, on the basis of information provided by the travelogues of the Chinese travelers, the identification, the exploration and excavation of Nalanda Mahavihara began. Francis Buchanan visited and surveyed Nalanda in 1811-12. His report was juxtaposition of history and myth as narrated by local folks. That remains belong to ancient Kundalpura, the capital of King Bhimika of Vidarbha and father of Rukmini, the wife of Krishna, though Jain tradition says it was a Pampapuri, the capital of Shenika of Magadha. He enforced that the rich historical heritage belongs to the hoary past up to the advent of Islam in India. It is now extant and ruin of Bargaon with the multiple range of structures extend from north to south is the main Nalanda. Its main feature is mound of 2000 feet in the vicinity of village. Markham Quito started exploring the several high mounds in the Bargaon and adjoining region. He also identified several sculptures, ponds, wells. He associated the site with Kundalpur and identified it with Nalo as mentioned by Fashion. In 1861-62, Alexander Cunningham explored Nalanda on the source of previous explorations and information provided by Chinese travelers. He also identifies Bargaon as Nalanda. He mentions that Bargaon is situated approximately 11.26 km from Rajgir and can be identified with Nalo of Fashion. It might be associated with Sariputra and also Mahamogalina. One of the most unorganized and perplexed archaeological intervention at Nalanda was by A.B. Broadley, the collector in charge of subdivision of Bihar. One of the most unorganized and perplexed archaeological intervention at Nalanda was A.B. Broadley, collector in charge of subdivision of Bihar, Patna in 1872. He began independent exploration and excavation of the site and opened the eastern, western and southern facades. He took many antiquities from the site to put them in the newly established museum at Bihar Sharif. He identifies it with the Vihar Grama, where thousands of years ago the great monastery of Nalanda, the most celebrated seat of Buddhist learning in the world, was existing. It is said that Broadley took more than 1,000 prisoners locked in Patna and Bihar jail and engaged them the half-jet excavation of Nalanda. The majority of them definitely were not criminals, but were freedom fighters who were imprisoned after revolution of 1857. His planning of excavation was half-jet and lacked scientific methods. He took away many precious artifacts without identifying their exact location. Begler criticizes him for unscientific, imprudent and unorganized excavation. He did not bother to take any kind of scientific assistant. Broadley took away the entrance gate of temple number 12 and exposed the northern mound and destroyed the major edifice. His finding may be to satisfy the popular belief, but not for any scientific examination of Nalanda as a great monument. Cunningham mentions that Nalanda Mahavihara was built after visit of Fashion and before arrival of Xuanzang. The remains of mounds of bricks are scattered all around, and the most exposed site is Hughes conical mound running north to south. In 1915, decision was taken to explore and excavate Nalanda on scientific parameters. D.B. Spooner surveyed the site of Bargaon in 1915 and started excavation in 1916. He finds that Nalanda was one of the leading centers of Buddhist culture and education. Its genesis can be traced to the Gupta period. He endorses Cunningham's view that Nalanda Mahavihara was not in existence when Fashion arrived here, but was founded later on. After Spooner, Hiranand Shastri joined as superintendent of archaeology at Nalanda. On his insistence, the place Bargaon was renamed as Nalanda. He took 2 seasons of excavation, 1900-1920 and 1920-21. The next phases of excavation were done by J. A. Pace in 1921-22. He has done the most extensive work in the Nalanda and excavated for 8 consecutive seasons, right from 1921-22 to 1928-29. He continued to maintain the standard pattern of earlier archaeologists and excavated a number of monasteries belonging to the Gupta and later Gupta period. After J. A. Pace and M. K. Qureshi started excavation in 1929-30 and completed 3 seasons up to 1930-32. He discovered large quantities of ashes and charcoal at monasteries number 7, showing that it was burnt down. G. C. Chandra succeeded Qureshi in 1932 and excavated monastery complex for season 1932-33, 33-34, 34-35 and 1935-36. He was mainly involved in conservation of the monasteries, chaityas and stupas. In 1936, N. Nazim took over the superintendent of Nalanda and excavated Chaitya number 13. Under his regime in 1936-37, exploration and conservation work were done at Stupa number 3, Chaitya number 13, monasteries 6 and 7. Amalanand Ghosh took charge in 1937 and led the conservation of chaityas and monasteries number 9 and 10. After independence, number of places within the monastic complex and outside were surveyed, explored and excavated. Sarai Mound was one of the important sites excavated in 1981-82. The remains of Hughes Temple complex and other artifacts have been excavated from here. After excavation of monasteries at Nalanda Mahavihara, debate started over exact number of students residing there. Many historians contested the record given by Chinese travelers. Xuanzang mentions that approximately 10,000 students used to impart education to the Great Vehicle and other subjects. Frederick Usher argues that within the present space of 488 into 244 meters of excavated site of Nalanda, if one counts 10,000 students were inculcating education here, then each one would share the space 11.9 square meters of space. It will be difficult to accommodate all, even if monks were sharing the space of a courtyard and area of temples and chaityas. Presently, over 300 cells have been discovered so far, and to accommodate 10,000 students, these monasteries should have 11 floors. However, Nalanda should not be considered on the basis of excavated structure of the monasteries and temple complex. The circumference of Nalanda was wider in its developed phase, and many satellite monasteries were linked and attached to the main Mahavihara, where monks could get specialized education. The old and new syllabus that represents the deep knowledge of Theravada as well as Mahayana were taught in the Mahavihara. The monk who came here to get expertise in metaphysics and epistemology, but one cannot get expertise in these subjects without knowing the fundamentals of Buddhism. The fundamentals are embedded in the Vinaya and the Sutras of the Theravada tradition. The additional knowledge of some schools of philosophy like Sankhya, Vaisheshika, Nyaya were also desirable. However, the knowledge of Lokayata or Charvaka was not desirable. The record of Chinese travelers show that some of the requisite knowledge was necessary to enter into the monastery and admitted into them. Iching informs that Chinese students who were keen to come Nalanda learned Sanskrit, grammar and Shabdavidya and other subjects in their monasteries or study centers known for it. Medicine, and metallurgy were also important subjects in the Nalanda.